What if a volcano could be born inside glass, silent now, but waiting to erupt alive?
I started with volcanic sand, shaping ridges and valleys like the skeleton of a future eruption.
Basalt fragments formed a crude crater, a miniature throat where molten fire would someday rise.
A thin layer of clay dust floated down, tinting the landscape with the color of ancient eruptions. To mimic Earth's inner heat, I buried tiny cables beneath the terrain, invisible but powerful.
A thermal sensor monitored every shift in temperature. Precision mattered for the volcano's birth.
The crater shimmered under the lamp, looking strangely alive, as though breathing its first breath.
I added red dye around the crater base, marking where molten channels would form underground. A gel mixture gave me the perfect magma viscosity, thick, heavy, and ready for controlled eruptions. I funneled the glowing gel into the reservoir beneath the crater, the volcano's beating heart. As the hidden coils warmed, faint heat shimmers bent the air like a rising dawn.
A tiny crack split the crust, barely visible, but a sign that pressure was finally building. Thin wisps of steam curled upward, collecting into droplets like the breath of a newborn volcano. The ground trembled ever so slightly, a quiet warning that something beneath was stirring. A faint red glow spread under the sand, the magma reservoir waking like a sleeping giant.
Then, one bubble. Small, soft, but undeniable, the volcano had taken its first breath.
The crater pulsed slowly, pushing the molten gel upward like a heartbeat, gaining strength. Heat bent the air above the crater, warping the landscape into a shimmering mirage. Steam rose in soft bursts, each one stronger, pressure building beneath a fragile crust. Day one ended with a red pulse beneath the crater, silent promise of an eruption yet to come.
When night settled, the crater cooled slightly, but its faint inner glow refused to fade away. By morning, the temperature had climbed again, signaling the magma chamber was steadily gaining pressure.
Beneath the surface, the molten gel shifted rhythmically, as though preparing for something bigger.
A new steam vent formed on the crater's edge, a quiet sign of changing underground pathways.
The sand began vibrating in tiny pulses, each one stronger, hinting at pressure reaching upward. A glowing fissure crept across the crust, small yet powerful, marking the volcano's growing intensity. Ripples of heat distorted the air, giving the entire miniature landscape a restless, living energy. Beneath the crust, the reservoir churned aggressively, each bubble rising faster than the last. Tiny sinkholes appeared where heat weakened the sand, reshaping the landscape without warning. Steam burst upward in sharp puffs, scattering droplets as the system struggled to release pressure. Suddenly, a tiny spurt of magma shot upward, a harmless eruption, but the first of many. The molten gel slid back into the crater, cooling quickly and sealing the crack it had created. A fresh crust formed over the crater, thicker than before, trapping heat beneath its surface. I increased the heat gradually, raising pressure without overwhelming the delicate internal system. Fine particles drifted upward from widening cracks, marking weak points preparing to give way. The inner glow brightened dramatically, painting the crater's edges like a rising, molten sunrise. The sand began swirling subtly in circles, driven by unseen currents of heat pushing outward. The steam vent widened, releasing sharper bursts that hinted at increasing underground instability. A fragment of crust lifted briefly as magma pushed upward, testing the crater's fragile barrier. The molten core pulsed harder now, each beat stronger, hinting that a major eruption was near. Steam began rising in rapid bursts, each one sharper, as heat concentrated dangerously under the crust. Thin streams of sand slid down the crater walls, revealing how unstable the structure was becoming. The glow beneath flickered rhythmically, like a heartbeat racing as pressure mounted beneath the surface. A minor crack deepened suddenly, its sharp snap echoing through the tank like a warning shot. Magma pressed against the fresh fissure, straining upward with slow persistence, testing its trapped confines. A thin fog of steam drifted across the crater, softening the surface like a veil before eruption. The heating cables glowed brighter as the controlled temperature increase nudged the system toward eruption. Ripples traveled across the sand as underground tremors grew stronger, reshaping the miniature landscape. A new vent opened, spitting sharp steam bursts that signaled shifting pressure beneath the crater. Below the crust, the magma pooled into a larger chamber, expanding slowly as heat continued to rise. The crater walls heated unevenly, creating weak spots that the rising magma would eventually exploit. A sudden steam plume blasted upward, a violent release suggesting pressure was reaching its peak. The glow beneath brightened like a molten sunrise, igniting the entire crater with fiery warmth. The crust bulged upward briefly, lifting just enough to prove eruption could strike at any moment. Inside the chamber, the magma boiled violently, its energy building faster than the crust could contain.
Steam carved narrow escape paths through the crust, forming delicate channels across the landscape.
Sections of sand collapsed inward as rising heat destabilized the crater's already fragile structure. The crater glowed deep orange, its color shifting like molten rock preparing to break through. A violent shake rattled the entire tank, the strongest tremor yet, warning of imminent eruption. The magma pressed dangerously close to the surface, glowing fiercely beneath the thinning crust above. The crust vibrated wildly now, trembling under the rising force trapped just inches beneath the surface. Steam burst through fresh cracks, firing upward like tiny geysers, marking the volcano's final buildup. The magma chamber pulsed rhythmically, each surge brighter than the last, ready to break containment. The crater ridge bent upward slightly, forming a dome of pressure that warned of imminent rupture.
Sand avalanches tumbled down the crater walls, loosening the structure as internal pressure surged higher.
A fierce glow leaked through the cracks, the molten light shimmering through every weakened fracture line. A wide plume of steam erupted upward, blasting the air with a violent release of pressure. The crater shook in powerful rhythmic pulses, each one echoing through the glass like thunder underwater. Cracks branched across the surface like lightning, racing outward as the crust reached its breaking point. The glow intensified beneath the rising dome, illuminating swirling magma desperate to escape confinement. New vents opened, spraying fine volcanic ash that drifted through the air like tiny sparks. The crater's center swelled dangerously, rising millimeters at a time under the crushing internal pressure. A sudden heat burst lifted sand into the air, scattering grains across the crater's rim. A bright red core shone through a widening fissure, revealing magma churning inches from open air. The entire crater trembled violently, shaking with the force of pressure, seeking its only escape path. Chaotic bursts of steam erupted rapidly, each one a desperate attempt to relieve the building intensity. The crater wall bent outward, deforming under the immense force pushing relentlessly from below. Loose grains slipped into the growing fissure, disappearing into the burning glow beneath the surface.
Below the crust, the magma swirled violently, its rising turbulence signaling eruption was seconds away.
The dome stretched to its limit, every second threatening the explosive release waiting underneath. At night, the crater glowed faintly, its heat rising like a whisper from deep within the earth. Tiny streams of vapor escaped through new cracks, shaping the first breaths of this microvolcano.
Moisture coated the glass again, hinting that pressure beneath the sand was slowly building.
Fine ash lifted gently, as if gravity had loosened its grip for just a moment. A thin fissure widened, glowing brighter, an early warning of what was forming below. The crust shifted slightly, each movement subtle but carried by real thermal force. A pressure pocket formed beneath the sand, swelling slowly like breath beneath a blanket.
Suddenly, a burst of steam erupted upward, the volcano showing its first real strength.
The crater flared alive, glowing brighter than ever, signaling another eruption soon.
After 6 days, the volcano stood complete, alive, breathing, and shaped by time itself.